Today's video is brought to you by Pelican Focus. Pelican Focus is the photo stacker that makes the most clear photographs that you could ever make. To get 20% off a lifetime license of Pelican Focus, go to modelersguild.com/HF. And we thank Pelican Focus for their support of our show. Hello, my name is Ron Perry, and I've built models in a number of scales over the years. The one thing that I can use in my modeling shop that works with every single scale is my dirt. And you might think to yourself, well, what are you talking about? The smaller the scale that you go in your modeling efforts, the harder it is to get yourself realistic sized dirt. And sometimes it really looks out of place. So the purpose of this video is to share what I do specifically on my small scale models. Now, the process itself, though, I wanted to inform you, makes available to you a number of different sizes of dirt, scenic dirt, cleans it off, and makes it perfect for your whole process. Now, I've been alluding to this whole process for a while now, about 6 months or more, because the process is super easy. But, you know, it just takes a lot of patience, and, you know, once I point all the steps out that I take in my procurement of scenic dirt, maybe that'll help you in your procurement, it's a hard word, of scenic dirt as well. And that includes if you're in Z scale or F scale. So the first thing that I do to get my dirt is I want a dirt that looks like my dirt roads. I'm going to use the same material that makes our dirt roads here in Ontario, Canada. Now, if you want to get colored dirt the same as mine, you got to come to London, Ontario, Canada, and I'll hook you up. Otherwise, you're stuck with your color, which is convenient because we always build models about our home, really, I think. However, if you want a color of dirt from a certain area, you know, that might be the reason to go on a trip. You know, get a bucket of dirt. And that's the first step of this whole process, is to get yourself a bucket of dirt. And what I'm using is what's called stone dust in my area. We have lots of limestone, and that's what our racetracks and dirt roads are made of, mainly. It's called stone dust, and it's made from limestone. Again, it might be different in your area, but that's what I'm using. And you'll find it at the edge of the road on a really wet and rainy day. If you get on a really, really wet and rainy day onto one of these roads and get off to the very, very side, in the middle it's going to be rock hard. It's going to be like cement. But on the side, where you get the loose gravel and stuff like that, it will have the water penetrates the dirt completely. It makes it fairly easy to dig up. You'd be surprised. And all it takes is about 1 or 2 shovelfuls, fill up a pot to get a whole bunch. Like, I'm talking, this is 6 months worth of dirt for me, and I use a lot of it. So I don't know. Now, we are going through a bunch of photos here showing what's happening in the process. And at the bottom of our peanut jar here, you know, we're a low-tech group. But what's fallen down immediately are the bigger stones. On top of that are the lighter stones, the stuff that, you know, got caught up in the water for a couple minutes. However, up top, I'd say 80% of the bucket has a murky water. And in that murky water is your finest of dirts. And it is indeed very easy to collect that dirt. Now, while we are letting our bigger rocks settle to the bottom, we just simply pour the top 80% off into another bucket and allow that to settle for a couple of days. However, I have to warn you that this soot or silt all by itself really hardens up, and you almost have to add a little bit of your other fine dirts to it, otherwise it becomes really hard to handle. However, I do use it on everything, and I've got jars of it. Now, up until this point, you thought you knew what I was talking about. However, it really has to be shown in this bucket here, which is just fine dirt. This is the fine silt that I'm talking about. And this stuff can be used for everything. It can be really used to paint your dirt onto a substance, because the pigmentation of the dirt is so high. So now we get to the fun part. up to this point, we're talking about 3 days of allowing the dirt to settle and rendering off the clear water on the top. This giving us the nice silt that was suspended in the water itself. However, we've got lots of it in this second batch. This video is made of 2 batches. The one where I demonstrated in the photographs, and then there was a much larger batch that was made out of the pot, the same pot, same amount of dirt, just did it in different ways. So now that we have everything down to the coffee grind container, we have to allow our silt to air dry in the sun. Now we can do this indoors, we can do it in many different ways, but the fact of the matter is the slower you allow this dirt to dry, the more concrete and penetrated into the coffee container it becomes. So if we put this in the sun for a few days and allow it to dry fairly quickly and get it out on one of the last few days just before it dries up, we got a better chance of having it more pliable and giving us the chance to be able to mix grades of dirt together. Now, after we get to this point where our dirt is dry enough for us to move on, we want to put it into I use a Chinese pasta strainer and shave the dirt through the bottom of that. You could use a number of different items would be able to work for this. I find the pasta strainer was fairly cheap at the Chinese market, and it's easy to clean off. Now that's the way I make my Scenic dirt. It's cheap. It is unbeatable in terms of size. And yeah, I know in these photos right here, or this video clip right here, it doesn't really look like it is super fine dirt. However, this is the state that you want to have this dirt in, because it's moving and it's not turning into concrete. And that's the real point of the matter here. You can test this out on your own, and if you allow the dirt to dry completely at the very end, like I don't do anymore, you'll find out why. So now that we have our dirt dried in our container, how do we use it? Do we just throw it on the layout, spray it down with the spray bottle, and that kind of gets the whole layout wet? Or do we do it like a master and paint the dirt on? Well, I'm going to paint the dirt on. And the way I'm going to do this is not merely mixing it with a lot of water to make a slurry, but I'm also going to add glycerin to the mix. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of glycerin, and in my opinion, the glycerin suspends the dirt a little bit more so that it doesn't really separate. It doesn't allow it to settle to the bottom like it does with just plain water. So when I believe, I might be wrong with this, but I might not be too. I've experimented with it a lot. I think that the glycerin makes it into a paint. So we're going to paint 2 coats onto this little bridge diorama that I'm building for a client, and we're going to paint it on. The first coat is fairly, you can see through it. Now granted, we are painting on a black foam surface, so it should be able to Like you should be able to see the black show through. But on the second coat, you can clearly see that the dirt is really getting a nice penetration. A nice full coat. The pigmentation of the dirt is beautiful. And then after it's all dried, it's sitting there on the layout without a lick of glue in it. Now, you know, if you use my Scenic glue mixture, you'll be fine. You'll have dry dirt at the very end too. I don't know what other glues are like, but you know how it is. So that's how I make my Scenic dirt. I demonstrated the Scenic dirt on an N-scale diorama, and I hope you'll agree with me that it is the finest dirt that you can get. Now, if you've got bigger dirts that you want to get, go back to the pail that you started with, because they're all in there. And you could use your Chinese strainer or different grading sifters to get your various sizes of dirt out. And I have done that too. And that, my friends, is how you make scale dirt for all scales, even Z scale. Just for you. Now, if you liked watching this video, please consider becoming a patron. It would help me out a lot. Talk to you later. Thanks a lot for watching.